On this channel, we have covered a lot of history. We've talked about battles that took place during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, World War I, World War II, even a little bit on Vietnam. But one of the conflicts that we haven't really covered is the Russo-Japanese War. Well, today we are going to fix that because I am in Japan and we are getting ready to tour this big boy right here. This is the Japanese battleship Mikasa, and we're going to be talking about the role that it played in the pivotal Battle of Tsushima Strait. All right, now, like I said, we are in Japan, and we're going to be talking a little bit about this battleship and the Russo-Japanese War today. In short, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not an expert when it comes to the Russo-Japanese War, but in short, the Russo-Japanese War was a conflict that occurred in 1904 to 1905 between Russia and Japan, really in a fight over land in Manchuria and present-day Korea. As the war progressed, people thought that the Russians were just going to walk right over the Japanese, and it ended up being the other way around. The Japanese had basically laid a siege to Port Arthur. So in order to relieve this siege, the Russian Baltic fleet sailed basically around the world to try and relieve the pressure that was being put on the Russians there. Well, partway through, Port Arthur fell. So Admiral Togo, who was the commander here on the battleship Mikasa, knew that the Russian fleet was probably going to try and make it to Vladivostok, and he could maybe catch them at a place called Tsushima Strait. So basically this is going to be a little bit of a choke point. Long story short, the Russians are going to get wrecked in this battle. They're going to go in with 11 battleships and they're going to leave with 0. So today we're going to go here on this battleship. I'm really excited because I've never been on a Japanese battleship before, and check out a little bit of the history behind this ship and the Russo-Japanese War. We've moved up to the bow of the ship, and I thought it would be good as we are touring this battleship to start off looking at the main guns. So what we're looking at here is a twin 40 caliber 12-inch gun. So the main turret, of course, is going to be kind of like the main symbol of the battleship. Range on this would have been about 10 kilometers. You can adjust that to miles as you see fit. The weight on it of each shell would have been approximately 40 kilograms. So you would have had about 40 guys who would have been manning this gun right here. Now there's one in the rear as well, one of these turrets. It would have been protected by 35 centimeter armor. Now again, this has all been added since the Second World War. All of this was stripped down after the war. And again, there was some damage that took place. But anyway, in its heyday, this would have been a beast of a ship. I mean, it looks like a beast right now. The ship would have had a crew of about 860 guys. Of that, 500 of them would have been tasked with manning the guns and with, supporting the gunners here. And then you would have had about 250 who would have been tasked with things related to the engine of the ship. But anyway, yeah, here's the main gun of the Mikasa. Here's a look at some examples of the projectiles that would have been hurled out of this 12-inch gun. So this one that we are looking at here on the left, it says is an armor-piercing shell. And then this one here on the right says is a drawn steel common shell. So yeah, you can imagine hurling that through the air. Whatever it hits, in this era at least, is likely to do some damage. Now, this ship experienced some damage from American bombers during the Second World War. And then after World War II, well, as you can imagine, the Soviets weren't too enthused that this battleship even existed, and to my understanding, wanted it destroyed. They ended up removing the superstructure and had a Quonset hut here on the deck, and American soldiers turned it into kind of like a little nightclub. Anyway, later on in the 1950s, they were able to retrieve some different items from different ships and start the restoration work of the Mikasa. So keep in mind that when we are looking at this ship, some of it is going to be made up of parts that aren't original, but it is going to give us an idea of what a battleship at the turn of the century would have looked like. Now, even though decent parts of this ship have been restored, what we are looking at right here is some of the original deck of the Mikasa. And something else that is really interesting about this battleship and about the Battle of Tsushima, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first naval battle, to use wireless communication. So what we are looking at here is the wireless room of this battleship. Okay, so they would have been using a telegraph, as you see here. And this was going to revolutionize warfare because it, of course, is going to allow for quick and easy communication. So when the Battle of Tsushima is kicking off, well, the Russians are making their way through the Tsushima Strait, and there's a converted cruiser called the Shinano Maru that detects the Russian fleet. They send a message to this battleship saying that the enemy has been sighted at what they call point 203, one of the predetermined points there along the strait. So that is going to allow this battleship and the other Japanese warships to mobilize and intercept the Russian fleet. What we are looking at here is the armament room for one of the 15 centimeter guns. Now, in this room, it would have been crewed by about 10 men, and they would eat, sleep, and live in this room. So at nighttime, they would hang hammocks up here and would sleep in this room. They were always here, ready to go in case a fight broke out. And when the hammocks weren't in use, well, they would put it up against the steel plating to prevent any like bullet fragmentation or anything like that from damaging them. But anyway, yeah, this is what the room for one of the 15 centimeter guns looked like. Moving along here along the port side of the ship, well, we can see 4 3-inch guns located mid-deck on the ship. So again, these are going to be guns that it says here they are 3-inch guns. So these would have been used in any kind of like close quarters combat. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, making our way up to the bridge now. Okay, now here on the bridge we have this conning tower, and what you would have seen here on the conning tower is an armor plating about 35 centimeters thick. And the reason that you have that thick armor here is to protect this area. So here you would have had your compass, you would have had your steering wheel, everything that you would have needed for command of this ship would have been right here in this section. And then again, if we just go out here, well, you can get a look out over the main guns at the bow of the ship. All right, we've moved up another level now, and we are here on the upper deck. And when we get up here, again, we have some more command and control rooms. So if we look in this room right here, well, this is the chart room. All right, so you're going to have a lot of navigation that is taking place in this room. And then right up there, I don't know if you'll be able to see it well or not, but there are some flags there that are used again for communication here on the ship. And then if we move around here, again, we see some more of the instrumentation that we saw just below us. Except for here, well, you have these little pipes hanging down that are going to be used for communication. So if we dodge up here and go up the steps here to the forecastle, well, up here, this is where the big bosses would be. So down here on the deck, you can see, well, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but these are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. The admiral who is commanding this ship during the Russo-Japanese War is a guy by the name of Togo. So Togo would have been standing right here in this spot, and then right next to him you would have had his chief of staff, and then you would have had the commanding officer right here, and then operations staff right there behind him, and they would be up here overseeing this whole thing. And again, here are these little communication tubes right here where they can communicate with the guys below them. This right up here is combining two of my least favorite things, which is heights and water. I am not a fan of either. I got a feeling that I would be just sick as a dog if I were to be up here out on the open seas. It would just be unpleasant for me. Paul Woodge and I went to the Channel Islands, and we took a boat out to Guernsey, or from Guernsey to Alderney and back. And man, by the time we got back, I was just hating life. So I can't even imagine what it'd be like up here. Oops, almost forgot to show something while I was up here. Also, here on the upper deck, they have this 60 centimeter spotlight, and there's one over on the other side too, on the port side. But of course, as you can imagine, they would use these to illuminate any ships that they might be targeting during a battle out in front of them. All right, we're getting ready to go down below deck now, and I know what everybody is thinking. Everybody's watching this, just waiting for old JD to smoke his head on something, but I'm telling you right now that it's not going to happen, because I am going to be careful, because I have suffered enough head trauma for the sake of this channel. Anyway, let's see, I'm just now getting down here, and it looks like they have like little souvenir items and stuff right here, and some art pieces that are connected. Yeah, interesting. All right, we're going to take a look around here and see what things look like below deck. All right, we're just going to do a walkthrough of a few of the rooms down here. And show what living conditions would have been like, at least for some of the officers and the upper crust. So here we have just like some different meeting rooms. Let's see if we go over here. Again, we have another one of these meeting rooms. I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what this is. I know that a lot of the furnishings are original. I do know that, but my English guide doesn't tell me exactly what everything is, and even in Japanese, they don't have it in Japanese for me to translate either. But if we go over here across the way, all right, well, you would have had a lot of officers that would have been occupying this space, and what we are looking at here is the wardroom. All right, so they would have had dining functions in here. Again, a lot of this stuff that you are seeing is original to the ship, at least that is my understanding. They would have had, the junior officers would have had meetings in here. So as you can see, this is a little bit nicer than what your run-of-the-mill Japanese sailor would have experienced on this ship. But what the Admiral had was even nicer. Here in this room, they have a few Japanese naval artifacts. So, for example, one of the things that you'll see in here are these uniforms. Okay, so these are some of the uniforms that you would see from some of the crew here on the ship. They also had musicians, I'm guessing, who would entertain the crew. And then here, it looks like might be looking at some sheet music. All right, we also have some medals down here. All right, and then if we go out and around here, well, we enter into another room that is called the memorial room. All right, so here's where they memorialize some of what I'm assuming are some of the crew who died during the Russo-Japanese War. All right, continuing our walkthrough, let's just talk for a moment about some of the privileges of rank and how good it is to be the man in charge. What we are looking at here is the Admiral's sleeping cabin. So here, of course, you can see a little bit of a desk where he could do some work in his room. He's also got his own personal sink here to wash up if need be. And the bed is what is most interesting to me. Almost looks a bit like a coffin. Now here's what I'm assuming. I don't know this. I'm assuming that it's arranged like this so the man doesn't roll out of bed as the ship is rolling and pitching back and forth on the ocean. Now, if we look off to the left here, well, you can see that on this side we have a door, and if we were to pop out here and see where that door goes, well, it is to a quite nice private bathroom. So again, here you got the sink, got his own private toilet right back here, and his own bathtub. Quite nice. So what we are looking at here is the pantry of the ship. This would have been close to the captain's quarters. And just across the way, so again, there's the Admiral's room right over there. But what we are looking at here is the captain's saloon. So the captain's saloon is where the captain would do a lot of his office work. Commanding officer of the Mikasa during the Russo-Japanese War was a guy by the name of Captain Hirojiko Ijishi. I think I'm mispronouncing that correctly. But you can see it's got some pretty nice furnishings here. But it doesn't compare to what we have next. So if we come around here, and move into this room, well, this is the Admiral's Saloon. So this is where the admirals and the commanding officers would have luncheons and dinner parties. If there were any official visits that took place, okay, well, this is the room where they would happen. And as a matter of fact, talking about the Russo-Japanese War and the Battle of Tsushima, well, this is the room where Russian Rear Admiral Nibogotov, or Nibokotov, I think is how you say his name. Anyway, this is where he offered his surrender to the remaining Russian fleet to Admiral Togo after the Battle of Tsushima. And then if we move on here, well, this room, which is really quite ornate, this is the Admiral's cabin. So this is where Admiral Togo would have done a lot of his office work. You can see it is finely furnished, and would have had a portrait of the Japanese Emperor Meiji right here. And one other thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was quite interesting as we go back here into the Admiral's room is right here in the dining room on either side. Look at this big old daggum gun that they have. So I'm going to say whoever was operating this gun, I mean, look at here. He gets a pretty comfortable seat here in the Admiral's room. But yeah, that is really quite incredible. Here in this room, they have several artifacts that are connected with the Russo-Japanese War, and I'm just going to point out a few of them here because they're interesting. So we've talked a little bit about Admiral Togo. Well, here are a pair of Admiral Togo's favorite binoculars. It says here they were made by Carl Zeiss and had a 5 and 10 power magnification. All right, and then here you see this painting here of him on the Mikasa. And then if we move on down here, well, they have, let's see what we have here. It says General Nogi's Chinese poem expressing feelings after the fall of Port Arthur. Here we have Prince Fushimi's service dress uniform. Okay, this is when he was wearing when he was wounded at the Battle of Yellow Sea. And we might even have some blood stains on it, along with a little statue of Prince Fushimi. Let's see if we move on down here. Well, here are some of the uniforms that belong to Admiral Togo. So here is his summer dress uniform right here. This is his frock coat dress uniform. And then right here is his court dress uniform. Yes, that's really cool. All right, here are a few more fascinating artifacts that are connected with the Mikasa. What we are looking at here, it looks like just a regular white cloth. This is the white flag of the Russian destroyer Byevodoy. This was the surrender flag that was hoisted above that ship. It was actually a tablecloth, but this is what they raised to say, ni nada, no more. And also, here they have a model of the Russian battleship Imperator Nikolai I. And then here are just a few Russian pennants that were captured from a couple of different ships. And then here's where it really gets interesting to me. What we are looking at here is the ensign of the Mikasa. So this was used at the end of the war, and it was taken away to the United States for a time, and then was returned about 73 years later. And then if we continue on, well, we have different depictions of different elements of the battle. This is all making me want to explore this battle even more in depth. Again, a lot of my knowledge is just pretty surface level here, but this right here is the bow crest of the Mikasa. So this would have been mounted on the front of the ship, this big chrysanthemum, and then just a few other things. We have some barometers, and we have the ship bell. Oh, not only do we have a ship bell, we've got a ship bell that has some battle damage to it. That's pretty interesting. And then also right here, they have some armor plating that got chipped off during the battle. Okay, and another says here a splinter hit of the Mikasa. So let's see, it says in the Battle of the Sea of Japan, this was the splinter of a shell that hit the crew's head, or the toilet, ouch, and injured 12 members of the crew. Dadgum. Guy can't even sit down on the toilet without somebody lobbing a shell at him. And then here, what we are looking at is a bullet hole that was left on the superstructure steel sheet of the Mikasa. Dadgum, this has been just interesting as heck. Well, there you go. That was a little bit on the Japanese battleship Mikasa and its role in the Russo-Japanese War. This place was cool as heck. I'll be the first to admit I'm not a professional when it comes to the Russo-Japanese War or the Navy, but being here has made me want to dive in and learn a lot more. So yeah, definitely glad that we came here today and yeah, learned a little something new.